Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lancaster Criminal Justice Meeting. Call to order, please.
Commission members Brown.
Present.
Carter.
Present.
Harris. Herr.
Present.
Rodriguez. Present. Vice Chair Little.
Present.
Chairman Vieira. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Linda. Invocation today from Pastor Dorrell Ardwine. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for helping me out with that.
Can we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning with thanksgiving and gratefulness. We thank you for these men and women who are put in position of leadership to lead and guide our community. We ask that you endow us with your wisdom. We ask for insight and understanding. We thank you for your presence and for your governance. Lord, we thank you this morning that each item that is addressed will go for the goodness and for the completeness of our community. In all things that we do, in all things that we say, we make sure to give you glory. And we pray this prayer today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Please place your right hand over your heart and recite with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple things before we get into I'd like to, always thank Mr. The Vice Mayor and for being here, and Mr. Rob Paris. Thank you, sir, always. Also, too, I'd like to introduce our new captain of the Lancaster office, Mr. Todd Weber, for being here. If there's anything you'd like to say, Captain, we'd love to hear it because we know that you're very much welcome here. So,
I'll give you a little background on myself since I'm just rolling in. My name's Todd Weber. I've been on the department for approximately almost 27 years now. As a deputy, I worked all over L.A. County from Linwood and East Compton and South L.A. to Santa Clarita, all the way out to Malibu and Westlake Village and Calabasas. So I've pretty much worked every type of area you could work as a deputy. I've worked internal affairs as a lieutenant of a shooting force rollout team. I worked internal criminal investigations bureau as a sergeant investigator, which is like internal affairs, but all you do is investigate criminal allegations against department members or county employees. Most recently, I was the operations lieutenant at Santa Clarita Station. So I got a fairly varied background and been, like I said, pretty much in every area of county you can think of. I'm very happy to be here. It looks like the city and the department have a really good working relationship here, as well as with the 5th District. Everyone's been very welcoming, and I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone here.
Captain, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're looking forward to it, too, also. Also, the CHP Commander, Eric Boner. Welcome, sir. I've seen
Thank you.
before. You've been here many times.
I know, yeah, I have. So a little background on me. I started off my career in East Los Angeles, worked there as an officer for about 10 years before I went to Altadena, worked in Altadena for a little while before I went up to headquarters. Did a couple of years in headquarters in our community outreach and marketing unit. Came back as a sergeant, went to Central Los Angeles, worked in Central for a few years before I went back to Altadena as a supervisor. Then promoted to lieutenant here into Antelope Valley. Served here for about 3.5 years, went to division, which is located over in Glendale. Took an executive lieutenant position there, and then from there recently promoted to come back here, which is really good for me, and my wife and kids are pretty happy that we didn't have to move, which is pretty rare on the highway patrol, to promote to captain without having to go somewhere far away. Yeah, I wanted to come back here. This is where I've been for the last several years, and enjoyed working here, enjoyed working with the community, and looking forward to continuing that relationship, and just excited to be back.
Thank you, Commander. We're glad to have you here, so thank you so much. One other thing, Mr. Draco, as far as Mr. Franklin, you wanted to say anything about Mr. Franklin, which we have
Yes, I wanted to invite everyone. We're honoring Mr. Franklin tomorrow. Mayor Paris and the City Council are honoring Mayor Steve Franklin at the courthouse tomorrow at noon. It's a pretty special presentation, I believe, going to be orchestrated by the Vice Mayor, Marv Christ. Okay, so I think what will be really interesting about it is we want to show support for the District Attorney's Office and the work Mr. Franklin is doing in our community to combat crime. We have an anomaly that's occurring here in both cities, actually, but most importantly for us in Lancaster is a reduction in crime over the last 9 months, which is a complete turnaround, and very few cities in LA County can say that at this point in time, and Mr. Franklin is an integral part of that.
well deserved, Mr. Franklin. Thank you so much for being here. So, okay, we have no speaker cards for agenda items, so I can move on. We'll get right into the approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from March 8th?
Motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion, a second. All vote, please. Pass 5-0. We'll get into the the commission reports. Mike. Long time.
Yes, sir, it has been. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me set up the presentation here on the slideshow in just a minute. Okay, so the first area of statistics I'm going to cover is going to be the burglary suppression team. Again, I have a side-by-side comparison of March statistics with February statistics as far as the difference of. Felony arrests for the month of March, we had 13, which was equal to what they had in February also, so there was no change there. Search warrants, they conducted one search warrant, which was 6 less than what they did in February. Warrant arrest were 18, which was a 14 number of 14 increased. No firearms were recovered in the month of March. However, they did recover $35,000 worth of stolen property, which was down by $6,000 only because February was an unusually high number for what they normally average by having almost $42,000 worth of recovered property for the month of February. Handful of those were also like burglaries that were stemming from Christmas gift thefts, and they recovered a lot in February. So that's why it was unusually higher than normal. So that's burglary suppression team. Our Lancaster team had a very significant increase as far as their activity and their productivity. Felony arrest, they had 52 for the month of February, which was an increase of 25. Misdemeanor arrest was 48, which was an increase of 34. They had a total arrest, combining those to 100, which was a very significant increase of 59. Stolen vehicles, they had a decrease of 2 because they had 6 in the month of March versus 8 in the month of February. And firearms recovered was 1 instead of, compared to what they had in February was 2. Next is a robbery team also. Their activity reports, they have felony arrests of 13 for the month of March. Search warrants, they had 6. No recovered firearms, also because they had 0 in February, so there was no change there. Total robberies, we're happy to report that there was a significant decrease. They had 21 total robberies, which was 6 less than the previous month. 7 armed. 7 of those were armed, and 14 of those were strong arm robberies. So strong arms have significantly dropped from the month prior to, especially. That says February there, but I'm sorry, I misquote. It is still March. So those are March's numbers, even though it says a February, January on there. And some of our crime prevention activity, we've had every 15 minutes program conducted at AV High School, and we have a couple more that are going to be done this month. And that's supposed to be preventative measures as we get ready for prom in the areas around here. There's a lot of SAD programs, Students Against Drunk Driving or Destructive Decisions, is very active this time of year because of the prom activity. So we're very happy to report a couple of schools have already had their prom with no significant incidents to report so far. DUI prevention, we had a checkpoint on St. Patrick's Day, and of the 15 years I've been up here at the station, the very first vehicle we stopped was a drunk driver. We had a total of 3 that we arrested that day, but the very first one, I've never seen that happen before, but it was a drunk driver, and we're happy to report we took that impaired driver off the road. Drug abuse prevention is also what we're focusing on. We've had a handful of different programs stemming or focused at the local high schools, preventing them from doing that type of activity. In fact, my partner and I, we also extended out to the county areas at Lake Los Angeles with the Hispanic community. We spoke in Spanish and we were members on a panel talking about youth and drug abuse, speaking to parents in Spanish on what are some of the dangers out there, how do you monitor your children, what are some of the things that kids do to hide drugs in their homes, on their personal property, and some of their habits, and some significant warning signs to look out for. So I think we had a great time there. There was some flocorico dancing, there was some food, I had some good pan dulce, and they welcomed us, and we had a great time out there in Lake LA. So that's just a couple of highlights of our crime prevention activities for the last month. Some of the community events that we also engaged in last month were Read Across America on Dr. Seuss's birthday. Elementary school at Eastside High School, we did a career fair out there, as well as spoke about child safety. We conducted 2 neighborhood watch meetings last month, one of them specifically here in the council chambers on the 30th. My partners also went to a Girl Scouts career day on the 13th. We did days of dialogue at Palmdale and helped them with some of their communities out there, along with some of the other things that we did out here in Lancaster. And then we began a community academy on the 14th, and that is an 8-week program. If you're not familiar with that, we introduce community members, 25 from Lancaster and 25 from Palmdale. We have different discussions. Yesterday we had Detective Tanya Owen speak about arson explosives. We speak about traffic in the areas. We talked about narcotics. Next week we're going to be talking about the nature of violence. A lot of different services that we provide, as well as a lot of different insight into what the Sheriff's Department's about, teaching them a different perspective. Later on in the month, we're going to do a jail tour down at NCCF, and we're going to finalize everything with the graduation ceremony at the AV Fairgrounds, along with them becoming deputies and also going through scenarios, domestic violence scenarios. They are the deputy sheriff. They are the ones who are going to be in charge of how to handle a domestic dispute, a traffic stop. So it's a very much a positive event that we've been doing. A lot of different community members come from a very different perspective, and it's almost, you see the light bulb turn on, like, oh, okay, so this is what law enforcement's about. These are some of the things that you, as deputy sheriffs, do that the general public's not familiar with. So it's really, really a good event. So I'll be more than welcome to throw invitations out to you on May 1st. We will be at the Antelope Valley Fairgrounds. If you want to come and see that, it's going to start at 6:30. So I'll throw that invitation out there to you. And then some of the next slides are pictures of the activities we talked about. Read Across America, the career day at Eastside High School. And the next slide, we're happy to report our Lancaster Station Baker to Vegas team, which I was proud to be the captain of. We beat Palmdale Station by about 55 minutes in our final time. Unfortunately, we did get second place behind LAPD by about 25 minutes, so I blame the captain on that one. That's my fault, but we'll do better next year. We've been very pleased over the last couple of years of our activity with that event. It's a good camaraderie event, and we did dedicate it in memory of Sergeant Owen. The other, as you can see, we have the Blue Angels up there. We were very happy to report no major incidents again at the air show. It's very well attended, very well received. It's good family time. And then the next slide also, not only are we promoting this month Distracted Driver Awareness Month, but we're also promoting flyers for the general public on our social media of what do you do when you're stopped by the police. In other words, when you're pulled over, when there's a traffic stop, some of the things that we've learned when we're talking to the general public at some of these dialogues, days of dialogue, is most people aren't aware of what are they supposed to do besides pull off to the side of the road. What are some of the expectations that we have? Some people believe, it's a good idea for me to get my license and registration, which is in the glove compartment, which for us as deputy sheriffs, as we're approaching a vehicle, we're concerned of our safety if a weapon is being going to be produced. So this information out here is available, these flyers. It's on our Facebook page of, pull off to the side of the road, keep your hands on the steering wheel. Please listen to some of the instructions that the officer is going to give you. Some of the courteous things that we want to share with the general public. So we believe that it comes from education. Not all the information that we have as drivers out there is shared through the DMV when you get your driver's license. So we want to be proactive and give that information out there to the public. I'm done with that section of my presentation. The next one I'm going to go into is the CommStats for the city of Lancaster. So in comparison of all the way to the top of the slideshow. More to the right. More to the right. Excuse me. Excuse me for a minute, sorry about that. Okay, so in comparison of the current year, which is in red, to the prior year, which is in blue, you can see we also had a drop as far as Part 1 crimes. We had, I can't see it too there, it's too blurry, but Part 1 crimes for the month of March last year were 341, and this year we had 317. As far as rapes, for the next slide, there was a small increase as far as the number of rapes, but still well below the average. Next slide shows robberies. Again, we're happy to report that number is significantly dropping, and that has also gone down, which we hope that trend continues into next month. And assaults, there was a slight increase in assaults in comparison from the previous month, and we're hoping that stays below the average. And burglaries are also reducing, which, of course, we're happy to report. And next slide. Thefts have increased significantly. We think a handful of that also has to come with some of the juvenile activity that we've been noticing with shoplifting, as well as just thefts in general. So we're hoping that we've had very productive activity as far as visibility over these last couple weeks, because I know spring break happened a couple weeks ago. So we're hoping that that number will also stay lower than it is currently right now. And grand theft autos, stolen vehicles, is only a slight increase from the previous month. And the last segment I want to report on will be on our LEAPS program. As far as the total number of arrests that, LEAPS. Yeah, it should be the next one after that. As you can see on your report also, LEAPS was supportive in 6 arrests. One of those arrests, the suspect did have a gun. There was also helped out in 5 burglaries. There were traffic stops that also it supported, as well as 10 other suspicious activities that we responded to. The total number of arrests and percentage-wise is helped out with, as far as its activity, 31% of the activity was directed towards arrest or detentions. 21% were related to some sort of vehicle activity, as far as following a stolen vehicle or a suspicious vehicle. 17 observations. Again, those are some of the things that we use on the detective side when we're looking for maybe a suspect in a specific area or a vehicle in a specific area. 10% had to do with burglaries or stolen properties or some sort of grand theft or vandalisms. And then 21% where we responded to either assaults or robberies or, again, that missing person that we're looking for. One other thing I'm happy to report as far as the LEAPS program is we currently have a new infrared camera. The technology at night is incredible. It looks like you're looking through it during daytime. So we're happy to extend the hours on that, or at least adjust our hours into later times so that we can have more nighttime coverage and support the activity that we're anticipating, which traditionally happens when the weather gets warmer. And then we're also in the process of upgrading the antenna at Lancaster Station, which will also continue to support the communication with that new camera. Other than that, I'm open for any questions if there's anything
Commissioners, any questions?
the board has.
Okay, yeah. Just have a simple question. What do you do with the property that recover?
Well, the property that's recovered, if it is related, if we have a victim, obviously we return it to the victim. For the most part, it is held for a certain period of time, hoping to find a victim, or it's held as evidence downtown Los Angeles. And then after, I believe, is it 9 months, sir, or a certain period of time, it gets the type of property. Mhm.
There is any site, website, and that we can get into and look through the non-claimed items?
Not necessarily. It doesn't work that way. If you're a victim of a crime, obviously we always say report it, and then we will write a description of that stolen item. And we internally at the Sheriff's Department try and match up that stolen item with what we have in our inventory to see if it was found either through a criminal activity or just recovered property that somebody may have turned in. Be as descriptive as possible. Any high-value items, we always recommend put your information on there, either only a number that you would know. Some people put driver's license number. Some people, I would not recommend social security numbers. Some people have done that. I would not recommend that. Putting your initials on there and a date of birth, maybe. Some sort of permanent etching that you could put like on a TV. There's different types of etching tools that you could hide in a very obscure part on there. Most of them are plastic. Tools, a lot of mechanics write their initials on their tools, which makes it easier for us to recover it. That goes into a database where we can look for it and do a search and then probably do a hit that we recovered it. It's a very thorough system. I can tell you, I could reassure you of that. But there's no place that you can search for and try and look for it like a catalog or something like that. It's something that you need to report, and then we'll find it, and we're hoping to try and give it to you. Something of high value that I've personally done before is we'll put it on social media if it's something very, very significant or something very, very personal. We put it on social media, so again, promoting our social media, please link up with us. Anytime something of value comes up like that, we put it out there to try and find an owner or something. Hopefully that answers your question, sir. Okay, thanks.
How much of the theft is residential or vehicle, and how much is business?
Well, most of the residential, sir, would be fall under burglary. But as far as business, the vast majority of it's business. I don't have the exact number, but off the top of my head, I'd probably say about 80%.
And in terms of recovery, that would be the same percentage?
Recovery, it varies very much so, but yeah, we try to keep it. There are some things that aren't always recovered, like consumable items, shampoo, and when I say like shoplifting, like shampoo, consumables, foods, and stuff like that, sometimes it's not recovered or it's damaged, and the business ends up throwing it away. Some have policies where they can't restock it, so that's a financial loss for them. So I'd say it's a little bit less than 80%, it'd be like 70, 75.
I had one other question, that was on LEAPS. What's the budget for LEAPS?
You know what, sir, I'm not privy to the financials of that. I think Mr. Lee DeRico would probably be able to talk about that.
It's slightly under $1 million a year.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
so
all very much.
Commander.
Okay, so far we've started off the year here. To date, we've had 5 fatal traffic collisions in CHP jurisdiction out here in Antelope Valley. 414 total traffic accidents have happened so far this year, which is up about 26% from the 3-year average. We've had 28 DUI collisions, which is down 15%, so we are seeing a downward trend in DUI collisions. Our officers have been out there making contact with the public, making enforcement contacts. So far, keeping in mind we only have 46 officers assigned to the area, and not all of them are assigned to the road patrol. We've still managed to make 3,383 enforcement contacts so far this year, and provide 1,267 motorist services. So we're doing the best we can with the personnel we have, and we're trying to work on getting more personnel. I know we were talking earlier about the every 15 minutes program, and I know Gil talked to you last month about that, but we've continued. We've done several in the last few months, and we'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department, the DA's office, and everyone else who comes out to help us with those events, because we couldn't put those on without their help.
Any questions?
I do have one. You said it was a 26% increase in traffic collisions. Is highway traffic collisions? Is there a thread? Is there a common trend to? Is it distracted driving, impatience, or?
We haven't narrowed down any thread. It's more. I think it does have a lot to do with distracted driving. I think statewide, where our collisions are up. Out here in particular, we have a lot of problems with speed. The last couple of fatals that I've seen, speed was a big factor in that. Unsafe speed for conditions, people just thinking they can go, as fast as they want because they think in their minds there's nobody else out there on the road in the middle of the night, but they're not counting on the car that crashed into the center divider and is now blocking the HOV lane around the curve that they suddenly come upon. And so those are some of the things that we're trying to get the word out, and we're trying to do as much enforcement and education as we can to cut down on those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. Any other questions? Mr. Franklin, sir.
Thanks. Looking at March's statistics for 2017, we filed, and of course this is all of Antelope Valley, not just Lancaster, but for the Antelope Valley, we filed 233 felony complaints. And to put that in perspective, that's on par with the airport court, which was 236, San Fernando, which was 235, and Van Nuys, which was 227. So it's all about the same numbers right there. Year to date, we filed 675 felony complaints, and again, that's on par with Van Nuys and San Fernando. I looked at March's 2016 to see how we are, and it's a little bit less. In March of 2016, we filed 260 felony complaints in a year to date of 684, so it's kind of a downward trend. In March of 2015, it was 247, and in March of 2014, it was 347, and that's obviously pre-Prop 47 and 57. So you can see the impact that had. As for misdemeanors, March 2017, we filed 651, and year to date, 2015. That's through March. And in March of 2016, to put it in perspective, it's about the same, up a little bit. March of 2016 was 624 misdemeanor cases filed for March, and year-to-date through March of 2016, it's 1,724. So we have 300 more misdemeanors year-to-date from last year. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions? None? None? You're thinking. I can tell you're thinking.
Does the misdemeanor charges that you have include cite and release? Because I'm kind of curious as to the impact of would be Prop 47, I believe, that where things would have been prior a misdemeanor offense are basically a ticket now, and see what the citation number, if that looks like a hockey stick or if that's on par with what it was prior to Prop 47.
Assuming they are issued a citation and the citation is a misdemeanor offense, then yes, we would receive that, and that would be in what we receive.
Thank you.
Mr. Drake.
That's probably something we could track and bring back that information for you based on the protocol that the Sheriff's Department has in place as it relates to those. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Mr. DeRico.
Ms. Corbett is not, she's ill today, so you're stuck with me for a little while now. And I think I'm on a time crunch, but I provided you just a document to give you some highlights of some of the things we're involved in as the city's public safety office. And just to give you an update just on the amount of neighborhood watch groups, but I'm just going to go through the list and I'll talk specifically about a couple. Right now, as of today, we have 254 active neighborhood watch groups, and again, that's always a transition era as people move into the area and move out of the area and appointing new leaders within those groups, so that's always, there's a lot of overturn with that. Business Watch, we just added the 5th business improvement group that's over here on Avenue I, based on some things the city's going to be moving forward with. And so we're currently working on establishing that group together to be more focused on some issues that we're dealing with there. Obviously, we manage parking enforcement, the Antelope Valley Community Youth Court, which is we're reopening in a different format. We work very closely with probation and the court on teen court. We work with Mr. Rob Paris on that and folks from their office as well that are involved in that project. We have 2 public safety specialists assigned that their expertise is dealing with all quality of life issues. So one of them specifically deals more with the homeless issues. The other one is as neighborhood disputes and issues come up. Those are the folks that go out there and try and resolve those issues. Graffiti restitution. We've been working very closely with Mr. Franklin on a whole conversion we've done on restitution that was owed to the city, which is well over $1 million based on collection, and worked with Mr. Franklin on developing a program that prior to anyone taking a plea on a case, they have to stipulate to the amount of restitution, and then it immediately converts over to civil judgment. So we're working a process through the city's collection method to recover those items, or that money that's owed. We liaison with every kind of public safety-oriented law enforcement agency that exists, along with all the county, state, and federal agencies as it's appropriate. We work and manage those contracts with those outside agencies and MOUs that they have with the city for operating within our jurisdiction. The mentoring and enforcement programs, mediation, that's something that's worked very well on resolving some of those issues, and I'll give you an example. When we took over the dog barking thing, which sounds really kind of okay, why was that a focus? You cannot believe the angst in people in areas when they have an issue with a dog that's creating problems in their area. Took that back from animal control when they had over 250 open cases that had some that were 3 years old that not had been addressed. I will tell you, we have about a 99.9% success rate on resolving those issues at that mediation level. Josh is intricately involved with that, which Josh is probably, I owe him big because he's been dealing with that for several years now. But that's just one of the things that's come out of the mediation model. Also, the other things as well as working on just neighborhood disputes. And it's an interesting phenomenon to watch when you just set 2 people in a room and get them to talk about an issue, how they can come up with resolution on their own. with just some proctoring on our part. So that's been very good. CSO support, community, and Josh is the CSO that supports the LANCAP program. Greg Coleman is the other CSO that supports the burglary suppression team, and I think they're an integral part of those teams. Unless Randy doesn't think so, he'll tell me, but I think so. And then we've gone on an aspect of dealing with blight issues in certain communities, certain neighborhoods within the community that are been, degraded to somewhat. And the obvious first thing to deal with is junk cars and abandoned vehicles in an area. And as of this fiscal year, we've towed 160 cars out of some of those neighborhoods that we've targeted from the aspect of just trying to get people to take ownership of their neighborhood and take some pride in their own community there, which helps us. That's had an immediate effect on that model with the broken window theory and also working with people in the neighborhood and crime. And you can see it change immediately as you start taking that interest. We also are involved heavily in the AVA program, which we want to bring a presentation that we just recently did for the school district on the success of that program in its third year. The numbers, I think you'll be quite surprised to see what an impact that's had on turning truancy around at that particular school, and it's something that the high school district's now looking to expand throughout the district. The numbers are really impressive on those kids that are back in the classroom. That also has two sides. It affects our daytime crime rate in the areas that draw for that school, which we can demonstrate that significant impact based on crime numbers, as well as the ADA recovery for the school and their funding. So that's been a very good program. Obviously, we work very closely with Archie and his folks from the LEAPS program on continuing. They have some things we're discussing right now that will greatly enhance the viability of that program. False alarm reporting, the mayor's working group, and then we are involved in all the security planning for all city events. We have over 20 city events just on the city side, not to mention people from the private sector that hold events within our community that we're involved in developing security plans for. And then obviously the support for the Criminal Justice Commission. And recently working with the ministries group on creating a network that will have access for services to families in need or citizens in support with nonprofits in the area. We have over 1,200 nonprofit organizations that are listing Lancaster as an address for their nonprofit. We're currently updating that vetting process to determine who's actually providing services and who's not, and then creating that list to be able to create that network for potential need and provide those service providers information to those people in need. So there you go. Some of the things we're working on. It's not everything, but some of these things are very heavily involved as far as what type of resource it takes to manage each one. Any questions?
Any questions? Commissioners?
With the abandoned cars that you towed, what happens to those cars? They just get impounded and then?
Well, people can go and recover them when they can show they can prove ownership of that vehicle. Okay, and most of that is they're in abandoned condition, so there's not registered in the locale, or their cars are stripped or missing parts or some things in an unsafe condition. And if the cars, they don't recover, then the cars go to lien sale through the tow company. Okay. So they're towed at no cost to the city. They just receive that apportionment of recovery from the car owner or when the vehicle is sold.
Understand. Thank you.
Leah, the teen court just as booked as, I think the last time there was a report that it's just been absolutely swamped as far as great program.
It's a great program. There's a differentiation between the two. Teen court is already kids that have been booked into the system, all right, and it's a diversion out of the system to keep the kids out of the criminal justice process, to move them to be judged by their peers in a group setting and collaboration with. It's created by Judge Wesley from downtown, and it's something we've worked very closely with Rob and developing that program. It's at 2 high schools currently with some planning on growth for that program, because it actually makes a huge difference for these kids that are involved, both on the juror side as well as the kids participating. There's some things we're looking at more on this as we look at this de-escalation of criminality as it relates to juveniles, and especially things that have occurred legislatively, like with Prop 57. It's more important now to us than ever for this intervention diversion model. I'd like to see that grow to a much heavier caseload. There's over 3,000 juvenile citations issued a month in Los Angeles County with one hearing officer assigned to probation. So there's obviously a great need on our side for the formalized process. On the other side, on the community youth court model, that's more of a diversion on the front side from the sheriff's department on that contact and determining which kids are divertible based on that first or second time offense to change that behavior. And then it's a similar model as far as structure, but it's more dealt with here at the city, okay, and working with law enforcement to say that kid, hey, we want to keep this kid out of the system. We want to change that bad behavior or that at-risk behavior before they become a part of the process. So there's a difference. So teen court's more affiliated with formalized through probation and the judiciary, and Antelope Valley Youth Court is more divertible on the front side of cases.
Great. Any questions? Any other things?
Lisa?
Lisa?
But I can talk a little bit about what we're doing for April, or what we did for April.
Fantastic.
So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and it's also Child Abuse Awareness Month. So I've worked very hard with public safety. We've done several PSAs. We've done a lot of billboards. We've done the Cinemark information, and we also did these little brochures about sexual assault. We're doing the No More campaign. April 26th is Denim Day, so we're asking the community to wear denim in support of victims of sexual assault. We're also doing what is called the Clothesline Project on the week of the 24th through the 28th at the college, where the college students are able to write on clothing, and we hang them, their feelings, their thoughts, if they had been sexually assaulted, providing counseling, self-defense classes. We have a lot going on this month, so I'm going to share these with everybody, and then, did I miss anything, Lou? So you should be hearing it on the radio and seeing our billboards out in our community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mr. Dorico. Russ Williams, Assemblyman Mackey's office.
It's Easter break right now, or I guess spring break, politically correct, but it's Easter break for the Assembly and for the Senate as well. So they're running all around the district at this point, talk with everybody. But Assemblyman Lackey, a couple of things. His bill, AB 6, which that's to the CHP, it creates a statewide task force on the drug to driving, which will develop then the best practices for law enforcement agencies to use to test out the new technology for using in the field, the drug driving tests. That is passed, it's about to pass the Assembly, should have passed the Assembly next week. And actually, then it's going to head over to the Senate. It currently has bipartisan support, so that's a good thing. Probably the biggest safety issue right now that we're looking at is SB 54, the plan to turn the state into a so-called sanctuary state. The problems with that, there are many problems with that. A lot of law enforcement groups are officially opposing it because it will put limits on how they can deal with the felons when immigration officials make requests to hold them. And although they're trying to change a little bit, it's still going through. It just passed the Senate, and it'll probably go into the Assembly shortly. And the Assemblyman would like to have the Commission here, if possible, give us some feedback on your thoughts of this too, because he's with the Safety Committee and wants to step forward with your thoughts, the Commission's thoughts, and the Commission's opinion of the passage of SB 54. So, and other than that, that's pretty much right now.
Any questions?
The SB 54, so the federal law should preempt the state law. If the state votes to do something in opposition to federal law, the federal government can choose not to withhold funds. Is that what is anticipated? How much money is the state looking at the potential to lose?
If that will happen, we have seen this in the past, as we know in the state of California. What's the federal law and the state law are two different things usually on many fronts. So at this point, it's just going to see who's going to win, who will win out. If the federal law will trump over, no pun intended, the state law, we'll have to see. At this point, it's an unknown. And you're absolutely right. The federal law should go over the state law. But many other things, whether it be the marijuana laws or such like that, the state puts their own laws in over the federal law. So we'll see.
Has the legislature done any study of the negative impacts? Let's say all the funding was withheld. Have they done the study to say it's X amount of dollars that we'll lose, the programs affected will be X, Y, and Z, before pushing this?
They have a number of studies from different organizations, and many times those studies will reflect what your desired outcome was in the first place. So at this point, they will have a side that will certainly tell you how this will benefit the state. But it's an emotional vote
right,
for the most part. This is totally emotional.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks, Russ.
So if you guys, just real quickly, if you get a chance as a commission, any feedback, please contact our office. If you want to put together anything formal, that'd be great too. But anything we can bring forward, one way or the other, of how this community can be affected or would be affected by this, let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cook is out in the area with Senator Wilkes today, so he's in the valley, so we'll skip that. This is the part of the program where anybody can speak on the agenda, allows the individual the opportunity to speak to the Criminal Justice Commission on not on the agenda items. You have 3 minutes, fill out a speaker card, hand it in, and we have a couple speaker cards. Mr. Juan, is it Leah? Leo? Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
I haven't even started, but the clock did. Hi. So much to say, so little time to say it in. I'm here. I've been meaning to come back, but it's just been so busy, right? I know Mr. DA here likes to share some articles sometimes. I'd like to share a couple articles with him. California Attorney General Kamala Harris sues to shut down 2 car donations, which were selling cars illegally without a license. It's kind of similar to a Lancaster group home, which city officials, sheriff's department, and DA's office seem to completely ignore. A couple other ones here. LA County Sheriff's deputies who lied continue to draw paychecks. Sheriff McDonald stated, "My question is for someone who is proven to be untruthful or lacks integrity or committed acts of theft, insubordination, those kinds of things. Where can I put someone like this?" Quote by Mr. Sheriff McDonald. There's Deputy Jordan on the record stating that when I spoke to him about crimes being committed, there was a false allegation made against me. Videotape proves my innocence. Now, when I told him, hey, why wasn't anything done? It would say, well, I asked him, so you're allowed to lie? He said, you're allowed to lie to deputies. Straight up. You are allowed to lie to deputies when filing a police report. I was asking him about the police report which the person lied on. He said, you're allowed to lie to the deputies and you're allowed to lie to the DA's office. I don't know, Mr. Franklin. That seems kind of wrong to me.
Mr. Leo, please,
Yes, well,
please address the commission.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Address the
okay, that's
commission
fine.
and not,
Well,
okay,
this
thank
is-
you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Two LAPD officers charged with covering up DUI crash, taking the driver home, and filing a false police report. So, police officers being charged with crimes for filing false police reports. On this one, I would question the integrity of Deputy Carter, Deputy Clark, and Deputy Dang. And I hate to say Mr. Randall here himself, because he investigated the matter that I complained about. He did nothing about it. It clears here significant physical evidence. The box is marked no. With evidence held, none. Well, let me go ahead and read off to you a quick little email that my attorney sent out. The videotape is conclusive evidence that the alleged victim is lying. And then it goes on to say, let's see here. Let's see. What is true is that the alleged victim continues to buy and sell used cars. What is true is that the alleged victim continues to perform auto mechanic work well into the evening in front of his house in violation of city ordinances. He continues to buy and sell used cars without a license. He goes on to say, if the let's see here. In light of the videotape evidence, continued prosecution of the criminal case filed against Mr. Leal is at the very least unwarranted and at worst malicious. Okay, so. When you look here, so there's clear evidence that there's a videotape that proves my innocence. But yet here on the police report that deputies filled out, the box is marked no. So that is a lie. Deputies knowingly lied on a police report. Now the DA goes on to say,
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Just one quick second. I'm sorry.
Oh, sir, your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you, sir.
That's fine. But
Thank you, sir.
I would really like. I welcome the captain, the new captain.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir. Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners, good morning. I want to start today by thanking you for your leniency last time. I am at the point in my life where when you have to go, you have to go, and I was out. I thought Russ would take a little more time talking that day, but he got through it too quick. So thank you for your consideration. Lisa, I have my pin on for child sexual assault and the awareness, the whole game, right? I was at a seminar. I came to talk a little bit about this, and I was remiss that day, last commission. It was Thursday, April 6th, and it was about child abuse and these things. And we had Detective Sergeant Dan Scott there from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and he was talking about the cognitive interview process, and it was all very interesting. And he was a little upset that there weren't more uniformed police officers there. But I understand that that's the reason I come here, to see all you dedicated people go about your jobs, and it's not like you don't have something better to do. So everybody's trying, and I appreciate that, and that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you again for all the things the city does to get kids out of crime, and the continued prosecution of certain things that seem to be futile. And it just takes personal integrity and a commitment to the system to keep going sometimes in light of these impossible situations. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you. Commissioner comments, anything? None? We will stand at adjournment till meeting May 10th, 2017.